Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really embarking on quite an extraordinary journey. It's one that plunges us deep into the complex, sometimes really unsettling depths of the human psyche. And its remarkable, and sometimes horrifying, capacity for adaptation, especially within these, extreme structured environments. Imagine a life just forged in hardship, seemingly set on one path, then suddenly hitting the system designed to contain it. What insights come out of that clash? We're about to find out.
Indeed. And this deep dive, it really is a journey into these intricate layers of human behavior, the nature of identity itself, and, well, the sometimes shocking reality of institutional life. We're going to meticulously unpack the extraordinary life and institutional odyssey of an individual known in our sources just as Damon. Our insights, they come from a truly unique and, frankly, deeply compelling set of documents. These are autobiographical accounts from a really remarkable observer, referred to as the buyer from World Succession Deed 1400. The buyer's chronicles detail their own personal observations and some pretty harrowing experiences within a clandestine facility, a place they vividly describe as Blacksite, Berlin, or penal psychiatry.
That's right. And these aren't just like detached notes. The buyer's experiences, they're presented as unsettling realities, deeply impacting their own life inside these walls. So along with the buyer's really personal accounts, we also have these detailed case notes and summaries about Damon himself. Our mission today is to explore this really intricate world, focusing on the, well, astonishing happenings within this facility, a place the buyer characterizes as much more than just your typical psychiatric hospital.
Exactly. The buyer describes Blacksite Berlin as a clandestine secret prison where the personnel, get this, operate alternately on behalf of the German, American, and Russian states,
Wow.
all apparently under the guise of an international deep state. And this complex, kind of shadowy oversight, according to the buyer, explains a lot about the facility's unique and often disturbing internal dynamics.
So we're going to delve into Damon's personality, his criminality, and the really profound complexities of life behind these deeply unsettling walls, all seen through the buyer's unique and, let's be honest, quite alarming lens. Prepare for some truly surprising facts and a deep dive that will definitely invite you to rethink a lot about human behavior under duress and the systems that are meant to contain it. Okay, so let's pull back that curtain on Damon's formative years, this period that really laid the foundation for the extraordinary individual he became. His story isn't just complex, it's a stark testament to the marked childhood hardship and, frankly, systemic failures can leave, forging these patterns of behavior that seem almost unbreakable, even in the most structured places.
Our sources reveal that Damon was Polish Romani, often described as restless with this almost primal, innate drive for profit, right from a very young age.
Yeah, and that drive, as you said, wasn't just greed, was it? It was born out of desperate, crushing necessity.
Absolutely. The records show he was forced into stealing by his parents from the age of 9, just to get food. Food for himself and his 9 siblings. Think about that. And to really underscore the environment, his father, disturbingly, was a convicted murderer.
Wow.
So from his earliest memories, Damon's world was just this brutal classroom, steeped in criminality, a constant struggle for basic survival. The lines between right and wrong were, well, probably non-existent for him, erased by the daily need to feed a family of 11 kids.
So survival meant exploitation from day one. And it's fascinating, or maybe just disturbing, how this shaped his view of, say, formal education.
Right. He actually boasted about never finishing a single day of school, which predictably left him completely illiterate and innumerate. Couldn't read, couldn't count.
Yet despite that total lack of formal learning, he had this almost instinctive, street-smart understanding of profit, how to make money, even illegally.
It's a striking paradox, isn't it? The failure of formal education, but this mastery of a very crude, almost predatory kind of economic sense.
So by the time he's just 14, he's already racked up hundreds of criminal offenses.
Literally hundreds. We're talking theft, robbery, burglaries. The sheer volume is just staggering for someone that young. And the records indicate he often got away with it, avoided prosecution, simply because he was underage.
A loophole, which probably just reinforced his belief that crime pays, right?
Very likely. This early success in dodging formal justice probably solidified his view that crime wasn't just viable, it was something he was good at.
The story then takes this other turn, revealing a pattern that, well, once you see it, it's just undeniably heartbreaking. There was an attempt at intervention.
A German-funded social project. Aimed to offer a lifeline, really. He was placed in, believe it or not, 7 different foster families, all the way over in Kazakhstan.
You'd think, wouldn't you, that this could have been his chance, a fresh start, away from everything.
You would hope so. But tragically, the cycle just continued. It was too deeply entrenched. He kept stealing, kept exploiting, led to brief prison stays even there.
And the sources, well, they include some truly shocking details from this time, things that paint a really grim picture of his escalating deviance.
They do. Contracting gonorrhea from prostitutes and disturbingly engaging in bestiality, specifically sodomy with a donkey.
Which, just for context, the ICD-10 clinically classifies under other disorders of sexual preference. It's a very detached diagnostic label for what are, frankly, profoundly disturbing acts.
Yes, the source is clear about these acts being part of his history. It underscores this complete breakdown of any conventional moral or social boundaries. His return to Germany at 18, it wasn't hopeful. It was deeply cynical.
Right, he reportedly believed the quality of stealing was just better in Germany.
Exactly, a stark admission. He wasn't looking for reform. He was looking for better opportunities in what he clearly saw as his chosen profession, his lifestyle.
And he found them, didn't he? Though the consequences for people around him were just devastating. Back in Berlin, straight back into the old pattern.
Immediately, he stole his disabled mother's entire savings, consumed drugs daily.
Which led to her disowning him. Understandably.
Completely. It's this tragic cycle of self-destruction, but it also just highlights the profound damage his actions inflicted, burning every single bridge.
And the downward spiral just kept going, plumbed even darker depths. After being disowned, he sought shelter with an aunt.
Yes. And what happened then was horrifying. Incestuous, pedophilic acts with his 14-year-old cousin. And later, the anal rape of his aunt, who, in this incredibly tragic and disturbing twist, was then revealed to be his biological mother.
Unimaginable.
These horrific revelations and acts left him utterly homeless, estranged from everyone, a pariah even within his own fractured family.
Just think about that. The compounding trauma, the betrayal, the total breakdown of any safety net. He became this textbook recidivist, living purely on the margins.
Funding his basic needs, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, food, even paying for sex work through daily theft. It wasn't isolated incidents, it was his sole means of survival.
And his sexual deviance wasn't limited to his family either.
No. The sources detail alarming instances of exhibitionism, sexual assault against minors, even against a gravely ill hospital patient. These acts just underscore his utterly indiscriminate sexual interests. He truly lived by this grim philosophy, the buyer recorded him saying, "A hole is a hole."
Chilling. Just a complete lack of empathy, profound objectification of others.
And this escalating pattern of violence and depravity, it reached this critical, unavoidable point with a severe hammer attack. He sided with his pimp cousin in some dispute with a neighbor, used a hammer, inflicted severe injuries.
And that was the final straw.
That brutal act finally led to his arrest, and crucially, his indefinite placement in the youth department of the penal psychiatry under Section 63 STGB. For our listeners, Section 63 STGB means placement in a psychiatric hospital. For people who've committed serious crimes but are deemed mentally ill, not criminally responsible in the usual sense. This marked the start of his institutional odyssey, inside the Blacksite.
So Demon lands in penal psychiatry, this place the buyer calls Blacksite Berlin. And almost immediately, his reputation, his essence, it just precedes him.
Absolutely. Our sources say he quickly earned the nickname Demon or Demon from everyone on the ward, staff, patients, everyone. And it wasn't for nothing. It was due to his relentlessly disruptive, restless behavior, constantly on the move, always looking for profit, never settling, a force of chaos.
And it's amazing, almost disturbing, how fast he adapted his criminal skills to this new, confined place.
It really is. Despite the restrictions, he found ways to operate. Routinely stole from other patients' rooms. The buyer's accounts detail his methods. He'd pick locks sometimes.
Or that clever, awful trick with the money changing.
Exactly. Offer to change large bills just to see where they hid their cash, then wait till they were gone, therapy, courtyard, whatever, break in, take it.
His audacity, his complete lack of shame, as the buyer put it, was like his shield, a tool for exploitation.
And he didn't just steal random items. He built this whole internal criminal economy, according to the buyer. Yes. An active participant in an illegal internal market, buying goods cheap from desperate patients, especially when they ran out of essentials like tobacco or coffee. Then he'd turn around and sell these things at what the buyer vividly calls Blacksite exorbitant prices.
There's that example of the watch, right?
The plastic gold watch, probably worth maybe €30 outside. He buys it from some unaccountable patient for €250, then flips it for €500 a few days later. Talk about a markup.
It's an astonishing display of his innate grasp of supply, demand, and just ruthless exploitation, even in this most unlikely marketplace.
And this internal market, incredibly, had a deeply corrupt institutional helper. The sources reveal he had this direct and profoundly disturbing relationship with a nurse at the Blacksite.
Not just an accomplice, she was his drug dealer.
Unbelievably, yes, bringing him large amounts of hashish and ecstasy into the facility to resell. Diman would then share most of the profits with her. The records even state, shockingly, that this nurse engaged in sexual acts with him in his cell for payment.
That goes beyond a breach of protocol. That's profound corruption. A total breakdown of ethics.
Especially within a facility already described by the buyer as operating under this kind of shadowy, clandestine oversight, it suggests a serious compromise of institutional integrity.
Which brings us to a really critical question, doesn't it? Here's Demon, still running his scams, seemingly unfazed by being locked up. Given the unique nature of this penal psychiatry, this Blacksite, what were the actual repercussions for his crimes inside? Did the normal rules even apply?
That's the crucial point. And it reveals one of the most astonishing paradoxes of his time there. According to the sources, Damon effectively had a free pass for his crimes within those walls.
A free pass? How?
His indefinite placement under Section 63 STGB. It meant any criminal charges filed by his victims, and there were many were incredibly consistently dismissed. The rationale, apparently, was that no other punishment could be harsher than being locked away indefinitely there.
So the system itself reinforced his behavior.
Exactly. This systemic loophole, as the buyer suggests, just cemented Damon's deeply ingrained view of criminality. Not as wrong, but as a valid, even protected lifestyle, immune to further legal consequence.
Yeah, that's incredible. So the system, trying to contain him, inadvertently validated his criminal identity. So if the law wasn't a threat, what was the danger inside?
The only real danger wasn't legal. It was the very real, immediate threat of retaliation from other patients. There's a harrowing account from the buyer. Damon narrowly escaping a knife attack from someone he'd robbed.
Did that shake him?
Apparently, it triggered a significant breakdown. He cried to a psychologist, which was rare for him. A moment of vulnerability. Yet even after that terrifying, near-fatal experience, he absolutely refused to return the stolen money.
He still couldn't let go of the profit.
Couldn't let go. It highlights this deeply ingrained inability. Even extreme physical danger couldn't break that cycle.
And it wasn't just actual theft getting him into trouble. He was selling fake drugs, too.
Oh, yes. Notorious for it. Flour as cocaine, tea as spice, even just green stuff from the yard passed off as weed. This, understandably, often led to justified beatings. Patients furious at being swindled would knock him unconscious.
But he didn't learn.
The truly shocking part. He never learned from these beatings. He'd just keep doing it, cycle after cycle. It indicates this profound, almost pathological inability to learn from negative consequences, no matter how brutal or direct.
Which brings us to his official diagnosis and his cognitive profile, which presents yet another layer of just deep contradiction.
Right. He was officially diagnosed with dissocial personality disorder, according to the ICD-10 classification. Observers noted he was a textbook example, characterized by that significant disregard for rules, lack of empathy, chronic irresponsibility, very low frustration tolerance, and always blaming others. He ticked every box.
But then there's the IQ score, which is just astonishing.
Astonishingly low. An IQ test at the clinic revealed an abysmally low score of 45 points. According to ICD-10, that indicates a medium-grade intellectual disability. To put that in perspective for you, that score is only minimally above the intelligence typically associated with chimpanzees.
45. Yet, despite this severe cognitive impairment, Damon was remarkably skilled at exploiting and manipulating others for money.
Exactly. We're talking about patients with significantly higher IQs, maybe 80 points higher, consistently being outsmarted, swindled by Damon.
How is that even possible? It just beggars belief, doesn't it? An IQ of 45, yet he's running rings around people with much higher scores.
It forces you to question the real-world relevance of these standardized tests, doesn't it? Are we measuring the right things? Does it suggest some kind of, I don't know, primal predatory intelligence? A cunning born purely from a lifetime of brutal survival and exploitation. Something that bypasses traditional cognitive pathways and our usual metrics.
Or maybe just how deeply ingrained those early survival patterns become. Overriding intellect, allowing for this very specific, dangerous kind of effectiveness.
It's a profound thought. The idea that street smarts, survival cunning, can just eclipse what we conventionally measure as intelligence.
And his physical characteristics, they also tell a story. Maybe about the toll his life and the institution took.
He was about 1.75 meters tall, so average height, but weighed over 120 kilograms. This massive weight gain, the sources attribute it to the relentless side effects of his medication, led to severe stretch marks, especially around his middle.
But even more unsettling were the scars.
Yes, countless self-harm scars covering both forearms, wrist to elbow, every millimeter apparently scarred, reflecting years of deep psychological distress, self-injury.
And the buyer noticed something disturbing about similar scars on staff.
A profoundly disturbing observation. They saw similar scars on a Blacksite social worker, asked about them. The social worker gave this highly improbable story about being attacked by a dangerous cat.
A dangerous cat.
It led the buyer to note that many Blacksite staff seemed, well, psychologically unwell themselves, deeply affected by the environment, which raises unsettling questions about the well-being of the carers, especially in a place described as a clandestine prison. The system itself seemed to inflict damage on everyone inside.
Paints a picture of a truly dysfunctional environment. So we have this highly manipulative demon who was also paradoxically highly manipulable himself.
Exactly. Those sources show this perfectly. He repeatedly fell for scams from his ex-girlfriend, the prostitute he knew from before. She'd sell him fake drugs, flour for cocaine, tobacco for cannabis, and despite being swindled over and over,
He'd just reorder from her again, didn't learn.
kept going back, this repetitive self-destructive cycle that, again, just contradicts his supposed cunning.
It highlights the contradictory, almost absurd nature of his character. A compulsive liar, a fantasist about being a gangster.
But quite bad at it, often making himself look ridiculous. The buyer even gave him that nickname, Belly Nocchio,
Belly Nokia.
pointing to his stomach, which, like Pinocchio's nose, seemed to grow when Damon exaggerated or lied. Darkly humorous, but apt. Captures that chronic fabrication.
And his delusions went beyond his own abilities. He was extremely superstitious, believed movies were real.
Deeply superstitious. Believed myths, fairy tales, movie special effects were actual reality. For Damon, the aliens in Men in Black, the vampires in Underworld or Twilight, those were basically documentaries.
Wow. Speaks to a profound naivety, maybe linked to the illiteracy, a deeply warped view of reality.
And his opportunism stretched even to religion, purely transactional. He'd switch from being a devout Christian Bible, cross, the works, to a convinced Muslim, Quran, prayer rug, all for perceived perks.
Like special food allowances.
Exactly,
Yeah.
getting halal meals. When that didn't pan out after years, he'd just switch back. Purely self-serving. No genuine belief, just performance for material gain.
And then there's the incredibly disturbing detail about the swastikas.
Yes, tattooing swastikas on all 10 fingers, seemingly emulating his father, who apparently had one on his forehead, which is particularly jarring, horrific really, because Damon was Polish Romani.
Groups viciously persecuted and murdered by the Nazis.
Exactly. It's this profound, sickening disconnect from history, from his own heritage, shows how deeply warped his understanding was. Thankfully, he used ballpoint pen ink, so the tattoos faded after a few weeks. An ephemeral symbol of something much deeper, much more disturbing.
A stark illustration of his fractured self-perception.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe just a desperate attempt to belong somewhere, anywhere, however monstrous. And he found an ally inside, another Romani patient.
Yes, formed what was known as the demonic duo. They'd boast constantly about their criminal pasts, talked about parallel justice system in their communities, viewing crime not as wrong, but as normal. A lifestyle, their identity, their status.
And they'd share stories of their exploits.
With chilling bravado, reinforcing each other's worldview. The other Romani patient told this story about robbing a moped rider with a knife, then fleeing the police, high-speed, no-helmet, girlfriend on the back, crashed the moped, severely injuring her.
And just abandoned her.
Abandoned her in the street, escaped on foot. Their shared cynicism, their harshness, the sources say, allowed them to dominate other patients, create this atmosphere of fear for their own petty gains, a ruthless, self-preserving mentality.
And the buyer's own experiences in this penal psychiatry, they also really shed light on the pervasive, unsettling atmosphere. Reinforce this idea of it being a place of profound disease.
Definitely. They describe this unexplained, significant weight gain, from 70 kilos up to 130 kilos, in just a year and a half. Despite eating less, avoiding sweets, led to this strong, deeply unsettling suspicion they were being given something. In their food, their drink, altering their metabolism.
Especially with the severe flatulence happening at the same time.
Right. These weren't just observations. These were deeply personal, alarming bodily changes the buyer experienced. hinting at a darker, more insidious institutional manipulation, aligning with that description of the Blacksite as clandestine.
That's truly chilling. To experience that, especially in an environment already described as a secret prison, the unease, the suspicion, and the institutional response when the buyer tried to do something about it.
Also very telling, no official supports offered. So the buyer improvises, waits water bottles in a pillowcase, trying to take back some control, staff notice, confiscate the equipment, explicitly tell the buyer not to train.
Adding to that feeling of being in a darker game, a system actively thwarting personal well-being, solidifying the buyer's belief in a hidden agenda.
And the buyer encountered other striking characters too, like Mr. Sick of It All?
Right. The guy with the facial tattoos.
Progressively worsening facial tattoos, often self-done, crude prison style, covered his whole face eventually, stubbornly claimed his amateur tattoos were professional, exhibited aggressive, self-contradictory behavior, and like Demon, a similarly low IQ, around 45 points, underscoring the prevalence of severe cognitive impairment there.
And Mr. Sick of It All had his own moment of just unbelievable lack of foresight.
Oh, the escape attempt. The buyer recounts it with, a mix of shock and morbid humor. During a court hearing, fully shackled handcuffs, belly belt, leg irons, he spontaneously jumps from a second-story window of the courthouse.
Breaks both legs, ends up in a wheelchair for months.
Such a poorly conceived, utterly absurd plan became this tragicomic symbol of his short-sightedness, highlighting that inability with such a low IQ to grasp basic physics, common sense consequences, profound impairment.
And finally, the buyer shared that extremely uncomfortable, frankly traumatizing incident with Demon. That really shows his utter lack of boundaries.
Yes. Damon had just had a visit from his ex-girlfriend, the prostitute, returns to the buyer's room, all exuberant. Without warning, thrusts two of his fingers right under the buyer's nose, actually touching the buyer's tongue.
Horrifying, because the buyer immediately understood the implication.
Damon proudly declared he'd just fingered his ex. The buyer reacts instinctively, spits on the floor, rushes to the bathroom, furiously cleans their mouth, brushes teeth with immense anger, distress.
An unwanted, indirect exposure to STD risk from a prostitute. Deeply unsettling for the buyer, who hadn't had sex since 2003, extremely cautious about STDs.
It just perfectly highlights Demon's reckless, utterly inconsiderate, deeply disturbing nature, the constant, unpredictable chaos he brought, even within the confines of the Blacksite.
It's a stark, visceral reminder of the chaotic, sometimes genuinely dangerous environment he created. How his thoughtless actions directly impacted and traumatized others, especially where personal space and safety were already so compromised.
Exactly.
So after about 10 years inside this Blacksite, you'd think Demon would be pretty much entrenched, wouldn't you? A permanent fixture. Well, here's where the story takes a truly shocking, and for many observers, just incomprehensible turn.
Our sources reveal a new psychological assessment was done, and its conclusion was utterly astounding to those who'd watched him for a decade. It stated that Damon was never mentally ill and is not mentally ill.
Never mentally ill after 10 years of textbook behavior.
It was, frankly, incomprehensible to many observers inside. After a decade showing all the signs of severe personality disorder, profound cognitive impairment, suddenly, not mentally ill, a seismic shift. Yet for Damon, it was a liberation.
So what happened then?
This reevaluation led to the immediate revocation of his Section 63 STGB placement, ended his indefinite stay in penal psychiatry. But he wasn't free. He was transferred to a regular prison. Totally different environment punishment, rehabilitation, not psychiatric care, to finally serve a sentence for something he did inside the Blacksite, breaking another patient's nose.
So the rules completely changed for him.
Dramatically. And he was about to learn just how different regular prison was.
That sudden shift in diagnosis is fascinating, deeply unsettling. After a decade, the system basically says, whoops, our mistake, you were never ill. Makes you really wonder about the flexibility, maybe the arbitrariness, of these labels within institutions, especially one described like the Blacksite.
And his time in regular prison, the sources say, was another kind of hell. He clearly hadn't adapted. That population runs on a different code. He made many enemies, was repeatedly attacked by groups of inmates.
His Blacksite behaviors didn't work there.
Not at all. The behavior honed in the Blacksite, where his criminality was sort of tolerated due to the Section 63 status, proved far more dangerous in a traditional prison. No more free pass. Different power dynamics, different expectations, led to severe immediate consequences. He was a predator in a new pond, and the other fish were, well, more numerous and organized.
And eventually he was released.
After serving his sentence, yes, released from prison. And the last we hear of him in the sources, he was living in a homeless shelter in Berlin-Wedding.
And in this strange, almost poetic twist, the buyer notes it was the same homeless shelter where they themselves had once lived.
Coincidentally, the same one where the buyer lived with their mother, enduring a terrible winter, no electricity, no heating. It brings his journey full circle, doesn't it? From forced childhood crime through this peculiar, unsettling institutional life, and finally back to the streets of Berlin, in a place steeped in shared hardship, echoes of past struggles.
Indeed. Demon's journey is just astonishing. Its scope, its contradictions, forced into crime as a kid, life shaped by violence, deprivation, then years in this very peculiar institution that for a time gave him that inadvertent free pass, to a sudden reevaluation saying he was not mentally ill, transferred to regular prison, and finally back to the absolute margins of society homelessness.
It's a story just riddled with profound contradictions, isn't it? The abysmally low IQ versus the shocking manipulative skill, the ingrained criminal lifestyle reinforced by a legal loophole inside the Blacksite, and that ultimate perplexing reassessment of his mental state.
It forces us to consider this profound interplay, doesn't it? Individual pathology, the institutional response, especially in a place described as a clandestine prison, and just the sheer relentless force of circumstance shaping life.
It's a powerful narrative, encourages us to look beyond simple labels, good, bad, sane, insane. Given Damon's whole journey, what does it truly mean to be unwell or sane when the definitions themselves seem so fluid, context-dependent, sometimes maybe even arbitrary within these complex systems?
And what responsibilities do these systems hold in their design, their practices, their oversight, their reevaluations for the paths people take or are maybe forced onto?
It's a lot to mull over.
A lot to think about, definitely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.